Breaking news here on CBS Sports HQ, and it is monster news. The NBA has suspended the season after Rudy Gobert has tested positive for coronavirus. Now, that's video from Monday at a press conference when Gobert was trying to joke around about the overreaction to the virus touching every mic and recorder in sight. And now he has contracted the coronavirus himself. The Jazz and Thunder were scheduled to play a game tonight. That game was postponed. Now the NBA season has been postponed. Eric Hakeem Dermish, welcome to CBS Sports NBA analyst Colin Ward-Henninger. Colin, for your first reaction here, the NBA has suspended the season.
Wow, I mean, just what a whirlwind. We went from possibly playing games with no fans to suddenly there being no NBA. And I think after the Rudy Gobert, Utah Jazz situation, the NBA really had no choice but to suspend the season. You can't have a player or team members who have been in contact with him out there playing NBA games and being around NBA personnel, even if there are no fans there. So it was an unexpected decision, but once the news of an actual NBA player having the coronavirus came out, the NBA simply had no choice. They had to suspend the season.
All right, let's take a look at the statement, and then we'll get your reaction to that and find out exactly what suspended means. Here we go. The NBA announced that a player in the Utah Jazz has preliminarily tested positive for that's the coronavirus. The test result was reported shortly prior to tip-off of tonight's game between the Jazz and Oklahoma City Thunder at Chesapeake Energy Arena. At that time, tonight's game was canceled. The affected player was not in the arena. The NBA is suspending gameplay following the conclusion of tonight's schedule of games until further notice. The NBA will use this hiatus to determine next steps for moving forward in regard to the coronavirus pandemic. So, when you hear that statement, does that make you think that they're suspending this season for now, or that the next time we're going to see NBA basketball is opening night next season?
I get the sense that it's a temporary thing, but look, I am not a doctor, and we've seen how this has affected other countries around the world, so I can't sit here and say that there is going to be NBA basketball again before next season. That being said, I do think that once this gets under control, there are protocols in place that they could continue. A few options. One, they could just suspend the rest of the regular season, begin the playoffs whenever they do resume. One, they could just push back. Another, they could just push back the entire season. So there are options, but obviously safety is priority right now, and it sounds like, just from all the science and data that's out there, that the number of cases is going to grow in the coming weeks and possibly the coming months. So while we may call this an indefinite suspension and it's intended to come back at some point, if this goes on and into the summer, there will be a time where the NBA has to sit down and say, do we just cancel the 2019-20 season?
Colin, how is this fair to the other teams that weren't involved in this situation? I know this sounds drastic and dramatic, perhaps, but if you're the Utah Jazz, hey, we're just going to sit out the rest of way here. We're not going to entirely suspend the entire season here, but we'll just take a step out, we'll step aside, and if we can come back at the end of the season, we come back. To me, to wipe out the whole season seems ridiculous.
Well, I'm thinking that the thought process is that Gobert has played in recent games, and if he had that coronavirus before and it was undetected, he could have passed that along not only to teammates, but to other members of the team personnel, people in the arena, things like that. So that would be the reason I would think that they would suspend the entire season. The other is there is obviously going to be a massive amount of concern and panic, not only among the fans, but now the players. And if you lose the players and tell them, look, we don't know, maybe Rudy Gobert gave you a high five, or as we saw, he touched all those microphones and recorders as a joke, it's not funny anymore, right? I mean, he could have spread that disease. So I think right now the NBA wants to take this break. They called it a hiatus to really figure out what to do. And I don't think any player would feel comfortable going out there, even if they said, look, the Jazz are off the schedule for the rest of the year.
We say hello and welcome to those who are watching the game where Boston University has upset Colgate 64-61. I'm Eric Casillas with Hakeem Dermish, our NBA writer Colin Ward-Henninger, joining us as the rather shocking and bombshell news. The NBA has suspended the season after Rudy Gobert of the Utah Jazz tested positive for the coronavirus. It was moments before tip-off, and his team, the Utah Jazz, about to play Oklahoma City in OKC, and they came on and they just sort of quarantined everybody, and now we're trying to find out details and move forward. One thing the NBA does say in their statement, Rudy Gobert was not in the arena tonight when, in fact, the two teams were, and then they decided to shut it down. So he was not there. It wasn't like he was on the floor and the fans were around or any of that stuff. But now when you see this, knowing the league like you do, what happens now? What are they doing? Who's meeting? And how do you anticipate things are going?
Well, you have to bring in health professionals, whoever that is, to come in and determine just how contagious Gobert was. You have to test. I don't know if this is possible, just given my limitations, but you have to test every player in the league, everybody who's been in contact with them, if that's at their disposal, to be sure that this hasn't been spread throughout the league, because that's concern number one. Forget the checks, forget NBA basketball, forget entertainment. We need to make sure that these players are healthy. So that has to be priority number one.
When you've heard this,
right now.
Colin, when you've heard guys talking about this in the days previous, it's not like we just found out about this today. Is there any thought that the league might quarantine these teams and the players right now and basically set up arrangements in spots where it's just the players? My understanding is the two teams, Oklahoma City and Utah, are currently being quarantined in the locker room. Do you think that the league might just say, all right, we're quarantining our guys and finding out where we are in this thing? Or is that just not possible given the lives these guys lead?
Yeah, I definitely think it's possible. I mean, I think that's been a standard protocol when somebody has been known to be associated with someone who has the coronavirus, is they are quarantined, they're tested, they wait until they're asymptomatic and that the test has come back negative, and then they let them go. We saw in the Chinese Basketball Association some American players who were trying to get back to the United States once the CBA suspended play were not allowed to leave until they went through that protocol. So while I don't think they're going to be keeping NBA players in arenas or in practice gyms, I think that there will be steps in place to make sure that those players are quarantined and in a safe environment and away from other players, at least until they figure out just how widespread or not widespread this might be.
It's hard to think that there wouldn't be an NBA season with an NBA championship title handed out, the Larry O'Brien trophy handed out. But we're tracking towards that right now. But
we've had in baseball with a strike, and now hopefully the NBA, this is just a break, not an ending to the season.
Colin, appreciate the insight here on CBS Sports HQ as we continue to follow this monster breaking news. The NBA has suspended its season, and Mavs owner Mark Cuban reacting to the news, just finding out on his phone. He's up and walking. He's going to probably go talk to front office members and executives. We'll be back. Keep it locked here at CBS Sports HQ as we cover this story.